Hey Nathan, welcome to the Sales Talk podcast.
Yeah. Thank you, Gopi, for the invite. Excited to be here, and yeah, really nice to be here.
Awesome. So before we jump into our discussion and talking about what we are going to speak at the podcast, maybe you could introduce yourself a bit about, what your profile is and what's your background. That might be helpful for the audience who are watching this.
For sure. So my name is Nathan. Born in Belgium in 1991, and I work at Tech like you. We also met in the past at Freshworks. But I graduated, I think, from uni in 2014. Then I moved, 2016. And then, yeah, in political sciences, so for something completely different. And then I went into tech, moved to Berlin for that, where I first worked at Penumbra, which was more medtech. And then I moved to Freshworks, where we met. There I worked almost 4 years. And then I did a quick gig at Honeypot for a bit over 1 year. And since then, I work at ChannelEngine. So at ChannelEngine, I'm a senior account executive. I opened the office also for ChannelEngine. I was their first hire here in Berlin. And we're now here with 7 people, and I'm the face and the person to go to for my customers. And I'm also in close contact with our partners here in Germany. And it has been quite a ride, super exciting. And I think that's like the most important things of my background.
Mhm. Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for the brief introduction. So the today's episode of the podcast, it's going to be around prospecting, right? And especially from the viewpoint of an account executive like yourself, right? What exactly prospecting is, and a bit about we dive a little bit deep into also the SaaS space and tech space you work for. So my question to you is, what do you think, in your opinion, are like some of the most effective strategies that you usually use to identify the new prospects and also connect with the prospects in different markets, right? So, because I'm assuming you work with different markets, that's something that maybe you could share a bit about.
Yeah, maybe that's good to point out. So I worked in total in sales at Freshworks. I started as a BDR first. I was focusing on the French-speaking market in Belgium and Luxembourg, of course. So that was Brussels, Wallonia, and Luxembourg. And I quickly also went to Flanders, where they speak Dutch, but it's still the same country basically. So I'd consider it the same market. And then afterwards, I was also responsible for the Netherlands. I even had quite a lot of customer contact with France at a certain moment due to the overlap. So there was a moment at Freshworks that I was like speaking with customers, with companies from 4 different countries, which was very interesting. And now I'm responsible for the German market. And the whole red line in these different markets is you have to be, as a company or as a salesperson, ICP driven.
Mhm.
So what I learned over the years is I have an ICP, which is basically the customer that I know that I would be very happy with our tool that we can deliver most service to. And then I also work with an ACP, which is the customer will still be very happy with the tool, but there might also be other tools that might please them, to say so. Like that could be good alternatives for the solution that I'm currently working in. So I always have these 2 buckets. And I really don't spend time on customers that do not fall in one of these buckets. So I have hard criteria for each of them. And yeah, by now, this is now industry standard, I would say. But I think the most important thing is that you are consistent in it.
Mhm.
And this is for all the markets, right? So there's a vision of ICP and ACP, and you also have to live by it in your prospecting. And there's so much information now available on all these companies. So you can actually already often find out which company is ICP or ACP depending on the information that you find online.
Right, interesting. I think ICP and ACP is something also used across different uh, verticals, right? So especially on the different industry sizes, and for SaaS and tech, I think it's like a very prominent term, I would say. But do you or have you worked on customization, for example, in prospecting itself, right? Especially with respect to outreach, right? Like resonating with a specific audience that, hey, this is how I customize for this set of people, this is how I customize for this set of people. Did you do something like that before, or was it always like, I'm just going to be super generic, so I'm just going to stick with one template and go for it?
Yeah, I think at the beginning of my career, I was definitely like that. When I was a starting BDR, and I think at the time that could have worked, or that have actually worked at the time. Because now you have all these tools like Salesloft, Outreach, and that kind of stuff that completely automates your whole sales process. And basically, the only manual tasks that you have to do is your cold calling and your LinkedIn messages. But that doesn't work now anymore, right? Because all these like all our competitors, like every single SaaS company now has these tools, and they automate everything out of it. And also, I became more picky over time, and a bit more conscious also. If I send a message out to a customer, my name is under it. So I want that person to have a good ID, or like a good image from who I am. Because in the end, when you reach out to people, people are already quite annoyed. Definitely, if they don't know you, let's face it. Then at least let's make it about them. And I think also 2024, Gopi, you can find so much information about your customers. It's not like in 2016, 2017 or something that for some companies you had to dig deep, but now everyone has LinkedIn, everyone has Xing. Companies now build a global presence. You have all these CEOs and founders that are talking on podcasts and stuff, and it makes it much easier now to personalize and to bring something in from that company or from that prospect that you would like to reach out to in your outreach. And I now go really heavy on customization, on personalization. If you would look at the total touch points that I have, I'm always at the bottom at like total touch points in outreach, because
Right.
I don't do quantity anymore. Like I pick a few accounts every day. I don't spend more because I have to focus mostly on closing and stuff. But I spend 1 hour of prospecting a day, and like I pick four accounts. I do a bit of research, which doesn't take longer than 5 minutes, and then do an outreach over LinkedIn.
That's interesting because you pointed out that it's still 2024 and still quality takes over quantity. I think that's something to focus on. And also with generative AI and ChatGPT, I think sales folks have actually started and investing a lot of time into generating the right script they wanted to reach the potential prospects or leads. So, which is super that you're already doing this. So, I'm sure that in the coming years, a lot of sales folks actually adapt to the AI technologies and use a lot of new tools to make sure the prospecting is done in the right way, in the right fashion. And but I'm more curious to know that were there any successful times it's with respect to your prospecting that that kind of led through a major breakthrough? Like, were there some times as an AE?
Yeah, multiple, but I think the most recent one. So I really love going after the media's darlings, because it also
Uh-huh.
helps me in my job. So you have these companies that are all the time in the media because the founders love it and they have like a huge presence. And the advantage of these companies, because they're always in the media, is that you have so much information about them. And there was one company I was going after, and I listened to all the podcasts because it's a fashion company, by the way. Um, and I listened to all the podcasts with the founder. I learned everything by heart, really, like all the most important things that he said during the podcast. He was even discussing at a certain moment, like, these are his goals for next year. So he
Uh-huh.
said it like out in the open. So first thing I did was I didn't reach out to the CEO directly, but I went to like a few people under him responsible for the vertical in which I operate. And I told him like, hey, I know that your CEO said that these are your goals. It might it might be happy. It might be good for us to have a quick chat. And then the guy said, okay, sure. And then we had a chat. And
Wow.
and
That's
this was quite recent, so I can't speak of successes or something so far. But we were now an ongoing conversation about their goals and the current challenges it might withhold them from it. But that was super interesting, and I actually highly recommend everyone to do it.
Wow, that's like super awesome because a lot of sales folks, they usually go to the websites or check out some PR activity or some news. But I think it's interesting to see that you've actually invested a lot of time listening to the podcasts and getting the content out of it. I think that's something like an added advantage, especially for prospecting itself, because you have so much to learn from it and use that as a like the bait if you want to get the reply or the response from the respective person, which is I think it's amazing what you're doing, and I would love to know more about it. Definitely, I would save that for a different session. How you actually capture data from podcasts.
I mean, I'm a massive podcast junkie.
Wow.
Even if I wouldn't be in sales, I would still just listen to podcasts.
Nice.
Um, I think it has something to do with age or something. Like when I was younger, I was listening all the time on the go to music, and now it's like podcasts about topics that I think are interesting. And I think my customers are interesting, or my potential customers are interesting. So I'm very curious to hear what they have to say in such media.
I mean, I'm not surprised because I listen to a lot of podcasts as well. Like, and there's like so much out there, and I think people can actually leverage that to, you know, find new prospects or build new businesses and connections with the clients. So it is amazing. And also from your experience, I would want to understand how do you prospect, especially in an unfamiliar market, right? So obviously there are a lot of markets which are untapped or unfamiliar that you don't want to risk yourself, tapping it. And how do you overcome them as well? So did you have such experiences back then?
Yeah, I think we have to get our definitions right.
Mm-hmm.
So if we talk, for example, about countries, like for example, now I'm responsible for ChannelEngine, I'm responsible for DACH, right? So markets are maybe Switzerland a bit less, but like Austria and Germany are quite similar. If now my company would ask me to, I don't know, reach out to Poland or something, then I would kind of use the same ICP and ACP that I have now, try to replicate there, and go over, like try to use the same strategy for Poland that I have now for Germany, and learn on the go, try new things, and mostly have the same key takeaways that I have, like that I get out of these customer conversations. If we talk about totally different industries, so that's actually something I'm still in a ChannelEngine, just to give you information about the company. So we are a middleware solution, and we connect the backend systems of our customers to global marketplaces, and we are also a sales tool. So it basically help like all our customers can centrally manage all these marketplaces, optimize content, data flows, optimize pricing, and make sure that they have this competitive advantages over the competitors on marketplaces like Zalando, Amazon, and so forth. Mm-hmm. And we're one of the few that only has a global reach. Now, coming back to the topic, I speak every day with industries that I have less experience with. So I would say in the company, I have most experience with verticals like home decor, electronics, toys, and bit of fashion. But for example, when I speak with refurbished companies, they have such unique pain points. Their use case of our tool is totally different. And yeah, that's really something that you have to learn over time, I have to say. It's like a lot of testing, a lot of trying new triggers. And it makes sense in verticals that you focus. Which maybe when we worked at Freshworks, for example, I remember, for example, Freshdesk, I had less of that issue because the use cases, regardless of the vertical, were quite similar. So there I could replicate more of the same content that I use, but that would definitely not work for the company that I work in now.
Mm-hmm. So like basically, from what I get is like obviously you use the already, like the markets that you have tapped in before, and especially use the same strategy here and apply it, and then see if it works or not. More about like a trial and error basis, right? So, but you wouldn't risk too much researching into the market and then going about a completely new strategy. Would you do that normally, or is this that you're just gonna use like a template and then go about with the template?
Here would actually go more like, for example, for the prospecting at least part, try to go for media and get information out of the media. If that doesn't work, like for example, refurbished would be such an industry for me. Very often these companies are a bit harder to find information from. In that sense, you have to focus more on the pain points, I'd say, but you need to really understand these pain points and put them into words. So really the only way how you can get there is having actual conversations with these customers. So how I would go there then more is probably cold call rather than have written communication.
Mm-hmm.
I really focus on the calling part, because then you can just try out multiple triggers in one in one call.
Mm-hmm.
If you manage to reach that person over time.
Right. Okay.
With written confirmation, it's with written communication, it might even be easier, I'd say, to go to the markets that are more familiar with you. But cold calling is probably the best channel if you reach out to industries that you still have to learn a lot about, because you can test immediately what works and what does not. While with emails or with LinkedIn, you might get ignored and you don't know why why you're being ignored. With cold calling, you get instant feedback.
I think it also depends on the region and also the cultural mindset, because especially for the APAC region where I used to work with Freshworks, it's completely a different ball game, the communication channel, and then let's just say for the US, and I think it also has to do, to play with the cultural setting and everything. So I think you're right, which I also agree with. Um, and another thing that I want to get in touch with you is also the tools and technologies while prospecting. And obviously,
Yeah.
with n number of tools today, like, I don't know, it gets sometimes super overwhelming. But what is your thought on that with the usage?
I mean, I don't think we use anything spectacular. So I use a lot of LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn is by far my most successful prospecting channel at the moment. Then what else do I use? Yeah, ChatGPT, of course. I can't live without ChatGPT these days. And I use it for everything really. It's to rewrite certain emails or to give me or in mails, or sometimes I'm just lazy and I don't want to proofread a long email that I sent, so I just put it in ChatGPT and I say correct it, get the typos out, and then I put it back to do account research.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely when you reach out to enterprises, you can ask ChatGPT immediate information about their last annual reports and deduct the most important points out of it that might be relevant for the industry in which you work in. What else do I use? Of course, Sales Navigator. Yeah, also LinkedIn, Sales Navigator. And I think these would be the tools that I use almost all the time. LinkedIn and Sales Navigator and ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds about right. And another question is, and I know that you are multilingual. I think you speak like 3, 4 languages. And I want to understand, how do you adapt to your sales pitch, like to resonate with the clients who are present in different regions or different countries? Do you have any strategy for it, or do you come up just, like with an idea just on spot?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when it comes to the cultural differences, I would say, and I can only speak for Europe here, right? So what I'm now about to say is not valid for people, Europeans or non-Europeans, who would maybe want to start selling Japan or maybe even India or South America or something. I don't know. I don't have experience with it, but I have the feeling, at least when you, as a European, deal with customers in Europe, culture is not such big of a deal. I would argue language can be a big of a deal depending on the market, like France, Spain, Germany, in some segments. I think if you go to the very east of Poland, language might still be sometimes be a bit of a blocker. But to come back to how I deal with these cultural differences is I think you need to get your sales basics right.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean? You need to make sure that you're there for the customer. That's
Right.
not culturally defined. Like customers all over the world love salespeople that bring expertise to the table. They love fast response times. They love having a frictionless buying experience, because buying software is hard and they need help with that. And of course, also we as a salesperson, we need to ask open questions that make our customers think, maybe challenge even current beliefs that they currently have in such a way that they would be open for it. And of course, focus on the impact of the tool. It's not that in France they want to have less impact, and in Germany they want to have big impact. I guess for Japanese customers, it's probably the same thing. Like they want to have a tool that works and a frictionless buying experience. That's nice. What I always ask, by the way, if a customer chooses the tool or like the company that I work for, I always ask them, why did you in the end choose for our company? Mm-hmm. And then they bring up different reasons. Yeah, I like the tool, I love the team, I like the company, this and that reason. So the general stuff. But one thing that always comes back is, Nathan, if I ask you a question, I know that the same day we'll get an answer. And I asked it already for the last 4 or 5 years, and I always get this same feedback back, regardless of the market I was operating in.
Wow, I think it's like focusing more on the value offering that you're doing, and also the providing the right customer support, right? I think that itself speaks irrespective of the language barrier or the boundary. That's what's kind of important for the client, more than any other factor that determines it. And
also on the language part, I think it's very, like, for example, I learned German pretty late in my life. I learned it around the age of 28. So when I speak German, I have a funny accent. But I also own it. Every time when I get to know a new customer, it's our first conversation that we have, discovery or whatever. The first thing I always say, my name is Nathan Benit. I'm account executive here at ChannelEngine. I have a funny accent because originally I'm from Belgium, but please let that not distract you. And I always see a big smile on the person at the other side. Like the ice is broken. They don't have to wonder, where is that person from? From where does that accent come from? And we can move on,
Wow. I never would have thought of this idea, but this is an amazing idea. Wow.
Just own it, say it at the very first thing that you say when you meet that person, and then you can move on. And
But the important question is, so did they get converted? So did you actually win the deal?
I mean, some of them I do, some of them I don't.
Nice.
I mean, I would love to have a 100% win rate, but I'm not there yet. So,
but still, I think that's really worth the shot. I would say. I think that shows how much of as a person you are, and that really, I think the clients or the prospects would definitely respect for it. So that's interesting. So another question is, what sort of advice would you have for account executives who are looking to build their confidence in using multiple languages in high-stake sales conversions? So is there something that you have, I don't know, shared it with other account executives already, or do you plan to do it sometime in the future? Do you have something in mind?
Yeah. So to give some advice there, like I already said, own it. But I think, look, you have to be very honest with yourself. You start a bit with a disadvantage. Definitely if you do sales, which is not your native language, but preparation is key. So what you lack in, I would say, the language barrier, you have to be extremely prepared. You need to know the case of the customer inside out, like the pain points, the challenges that the customer tries to solve, like on a business level, on a financial level, but maybe also on a personal level. Like when you talk to an IT manager and the person says, I spend so many hours in the evening waiting for the Microsoft helpline that I actually want to more spend with my family. That's a pain point. Mm-hmm. So you need to really know these the case of the customer, and of course also the terms and the conditions, and of course the impact that you will bring to the customer. So you have to come extremely prepared, block some time in advance. What will be discussed, and think about it, and also think already about certain scenarios that might happen, because you need to make up in the end for the lack of knowledge that the lack of language that you have compared to that person. And also, as a second advice, give yourself time. Like, the very first time for a different company, when I started doing sales in Germany, I thought my German was good. And then I went to do my first discovery call and it was carnage. Like, it was absolutely awful. And I had this very polite mister in front of me, and he was very patient. Obviously, I lost that deal. But he stuck with me for half an hour. And I had to. It took me 15 calls, I think, to be quite confident in maybe even a bit more. But like, it took me, the first 15 calls were really not that good, honestly. But what moved the needle for me is, of course, I pushed through. Like, for the first 15 calls, I really had to push through and speak in a language that was quite foreign to me, as I learned it quite late in my life. But you like, if you want to do this, you have to go through the pain, but also take courses, because it will shrink the learning curve so much.
Mm-hmm.
You will have a person who will correct you on the spot with vocabulary, grammar, the way how you say things, maybe words you can do better. And what really moved the needle for me, by the way, was I booked every week for 2 hours, on two separate days, 1 hour each, a private teacher. And the only thing I would do with that person was show her my demo, do a fake discovery call. I would tell her what she has to say and what not. But just have a German teacher with whom I would go over my sales process, or even try to do cold calling. And that person would correct me on the spot. It's a safe space. And I'm 100% sure that it really reduced the learning curve for me and helped me to be successful in my job much faster than if I would have just tried to learn this on the spot.
This is actually very inspiring to me, when I hear it, because that's like a biggest struggle. I think a lot of sales folks who do not speak German in the German market, like, I think this is super inspiring what you're doing. And I mean, I would be like happy to explore it myself, although I speak German, but prospecting and cold calling is another ball game. So, but this is what you've done or doing. I think it's super. I think hats off to you for that, especially.
Everyone can do it. Believe me, everyone can do it. No, really, yeah, everyone can do it, but you just have to push through the pain the first 2 months. And again, if you get a teacher, it will help you. Like, do it in group classes, maybe book a few private classes, but just that you have the safe space where you can try stuff out and you actually have a professional who can correct you on it. Because in the end, your customers are not going to do it. Your customers are not your teacher. Like, they're going to try to understand what you're trying to tell them, but they're not going to say, well, I would have said that different in German, and I would have used that word instead, and this and that. So try to do that with teacher.
Awesome. Maybe like one last question is, as a multilingual person, how would you position yourself apart from the crowd and make sure that you're more competitive? You stand out from the crowd in a global market, right? So how would you say that?
I mean, multilingual people definitely have an advantage. I would say, look, some things will never change because we're human. And Gopi, let's be honest, we're quite special in the sense that we both live somewhere abroad. I mean, with my partner, I speak English all the time, and I have many friends with whom I speak English and other languages and stuff. But we have to understand that this is really like this is not the norm, to say so. It's a bit different. Most people have a relationship in which they speak their native language, and they live not in a global city like Berlin, but they live in a village somewhere else. So they only really face their native language most of the time. And only at work from time to time they speak with English-speaking people. So if you as a salesperson and you speak multiple languages and you are able to serve your customers in their native language, even if that's not your native language, then you always have an advantage over the other salesperson who cannot do that, who can only offer that service in English, whether it's his first or his second language. Little difference, just because it gives customers a daring control of the conversation, that they can express themselves, and they will really appreciate it if you already do the effort of speaking to them in their language. Like, you always have the benefit when you speak your customer's language, and it's also really satisfying doing that.
Absolutely, I 100% agree with you. I also personally speaking from my own experience. But yeah, I think that's something that people could definitely work on, and it takes time, as you rightly pointed out. So give some time and learn, relearn, and so on and so forth. Just keep repeating it. But yeah, other than that, I think thank you so much, Nathan, for this wonderful exchange I had with you. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thank you again for the invite. I had lots of fun, and yeah, success with your podcast series.
Thank you so much.